Planning Commission meeting for September 9th, 2021 to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Zeman, would you call the roll?
Mr. Cicero.
Here.
Mr. Crocker.
Here.
Mr. Haddon.
Here.
Mr. Perkovic.
Here.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Here.
Mr. Varga.
Excused.
Mr. Cook.
Here. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting, August 19th, 2021.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Zeman, will you call the roll?
Keep in mind, I necessarily can't make out your voices too well. So the motion was made by Mr. Haddon and then seconded by Mr. Tiedemann. Thank you. I'll get a shorthand going in no time, I'm sure. Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Crocker.
Yes.
Mr. Haddon.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. On tonight's agenda, we have one public hearing, and we will follow this format. First, the applicant will have the opportunity to explain what they would like to do at a particular location. Second, anyone wishing to speak in favor of this proposal will be given the opportunity to do so. Finally, anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be afforded the time to do so. Or some people may just have questions, and we will get those answers. And with that, we have a conditional use permit to allow a recreational facility at 7165 Center Street, Unit B5-6. Is that applicant here? Will you please come up and state your name and address for Mr. Zeman?
Good evening. My name is Bridget Ebinger Balla. Would you like me to spell that?
Yes, please.
E as in Edward, B as in boy, ENGER, dash, B as in boy, ALLA. Address 19885 Detroit Road, number 160, Rocky River, Ohio, 44116.
Thank you. Please tell us a little bit about what you want to do at this location.
Thank you. My name of my company is Velocity Softball. I'm looking to use this facility to do fast pitch skills instruction, pitching, hitting, and throwing for athletes ages 8 to 18.
Okay, thank you.
Pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of frills to it.
Thank you. Is there anybody wishing to speak in favor of this proposal? Is there anybody wishing to speak against this proposal? This public hearing is closed. Is there anything from the administration?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman, other than the conditions noted.
You've read the staff report, and you
Yes, I have.
agree with the conditions?
I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
It's my understanding that I will need to get written confirmation and plan modifications in regards to the comments that were made by the various departments. One of the questions I do have is in regards to the parking. It's my understanding with one of the conversations I had with one of the building individuals, that this may be canned language because my facility is on ground level. It's talking about ramps. So I just wanted to get some additional clarification as far as the parking requirements.
Are you in referencing the handicap accessible spaces?
Yes, correct.
So you're saying well, I believe based on the information we reviewed, is there, I think, 2 spaces already provided for handicap on the total on the site?
That's my understanding, yes, on the entire site.
It is a standard stipulation that we do provide. And we would also, of course, defer to the building department in terms of making sure that the applicable standards are met with regard to that. If they've already been met, fine. But if there's anything that needs to be adjusted, that's what we're looking for. So you're in the back building. Which door are we talking about here? That one? Yeah.
That looks to be correct.
And it's hard, it's just really hard to tell from this.
No, I understand it's hard to tell. I believe I counted 4 spaces in front of my particular unit that I would be occupying.
Well, I think the way the condition is written is that as long as the required handicap accessible spaces are met for the entire site, then it's fine. We won't have any further issue.
Okay. Is it possible, the owner of the facility, Bobby Zappatelli, is here. Is it possible that he comes forward just to ask any questions? I just frankly don't want to speak for him as far as being the owner of the building and myself just being a tenant. I don't want to commit him to something that he, as an owner, would not want to be committed to. Is that appropriate?
Sure. Sure. Mr. Zappatelli? Speak your name and address for Mr. Zeman, please.
Hello, my name's Bobby Zappatelli, 7438 Hunting Lake Drive, Concord, Ohio, 44077.
I know number 2 would be more appropriately answered by the property owner, is to provide appropriate restriping of the site. Are you agreeable to that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. We did receive one email, and it was a request that some of the traffic leaving be directed to the northernmost driveway. Is this possible to direct the traffic that way? That was the only concern here that we had received.
I guess I wasn't familiar with the email. Was that from a current tenant?
It was from a resident. I don't know if it's something that we can, it was not an objection, it was just a recommendation that if some of the traffic could be traffic northbound, but
I would say that's going to be hard to mandate, other than the tenant owner just recommending that to her clients. But I don't know that, and then maybe Mr. Zappatelli can speak to it. Is there a reason why we wouldn't want to use the South Drive?
Nothing that I'm aware of.
You can get around the building completely from each end, correct?
100%.
Yeah.
If you were to, the only problems we have sometimes is when, it's snowing, when we have substantial snow, and some of our tenants are in manufacturing, and when they have their delivery trucks come in, their trucks do have to take a little bit longer times around the corners, but other than that, we have no problems with in and out.
okay. Thank you. Anything else from the commission members?
I just had one further question in regards to number 5. According to the report, that was a recommendation, but the language gives it the impression of being a requirement.
Right, it is it's a condition, and that's pretty boilerplate for what we've required in these types of facilities.
Okay. My request would be that the commission would give me an opportunity to not necessarily meet that right away. My concern is that the FDA just recently required ADA manufacturers to actually get pre-authorization before it goes to market. That happened in February of 2020. They also extended that compliance, so they're not requiring manufacturers to meet that requirement until February of 2022. I think we can all agree that the FDA has a lot on their plate, and there's a very good, strong possibility that they may push that requirement again for compliance, pre-market compliance. And that would kind of put me in a position of potentially purchasing a unit that may no longer meet FDA standards and therefore have to potentially purchase another one, which is because this requirement has narrowed the field as far as providers are concerned, which has also increased the expense of the device itself. And again, with supply chain concerns, shortages, etc., I'd be concerned about being able to meet that requirement upon initial business.
So when do you think you could purchase one?
My concern would be the fact that the recommendation requirement is February of 2020. And if they extend that, could we maybe potentially put language that would take into consideration the FDA's compliance requirements for the manufacturers?
Okay. Kathy? Oh,
Chair.
Mr. Cicero.
See, I guess I view an AED, an emergency defibrillator device, a safety item. So I understand what you're saying, but you're still going to have children in the facility, you're going to have people competing athletically. That's why you have one of these. And I get what you're saying with the FDA. They may push it out 3 more years. And I don't think, at least myself as one commission member, wants to put these children at risk by saying, well, let's wait on the FDA. I kind of think this is pretty important for this kind of business.
Okay. Does the city offer any type of grants or anything in regards to something of this nature? Because it is an expense, a substantial expense upon an onset of a business. I'm not a not-profit, I'm not a government, I'm not a school, which is where most of the grants for AEDs are in place. I don't know if that's something that the city offers.
I'm not sure.
I mean, short of, I guess, speaking with even the fire department to maybe find out, but I can't guarantee anything.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
would be
know.
where I would look. I don't know.
I did actually speak to one of the inspectors this afternoon, and he just simply said it was a recommendation. That was all the information that he could give me at that time.
Well, I think we're at an impasse here, because
Okay.
I'm on board with Mr. Cicero, and I don't want to speak for others, but, when you have kids and whatnot.
We will work with the tenant to get this pushed through. I think with the costs and everything, we'll be able to work something out in our lease so they can get the proper equipment, just so she can start her own her business, and we can go from there with everything. But we will work that out between us, and we'll go from there with everything.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I
No
appreciate it.
problem.
Thank you. All right. Do you have
Thank
any
you.
other questions?
No, I think that was all. I appreciate the time and the consideration. I also appreciate the assistance that I got as a potential new business owner coming to the city of Mentor. The building commission and planning individuals were very helpful as far as pointing me in the right direction as to get here today. And I just want to take that moment to say thank you for that.
Thank you. Anything else from the commission members? With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion with the 6 conditions.
Second.
Mr. Zeman, please call the roll.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Crocker.
Yes.
Mr. Haddon.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, under old business, number 2 will remain on the table. And number 3, a conditional use permit to allow a vehicle charging station at a similar use at 7800 Reynolds Avenue. This applicant would like to withdraw this, so at this point, I'll entertain a motion to withdraw.
Remove from the table.
Remove it from the table. I'm sorry. A motion to remove it from the table.
I move to remove the item from the table.
Second.
Mr. Seaman, call the roll.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Crocker.
Yes.
Mr. Haddon.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. And now I'll entertain a motion to withdraw it from the agenda.
I'll make a motion.
I'm sorry, Ms.
All right,
Mitchell?
Mr. Zeman, do we want them to say dismiss without prejudice? Doesn't matter?
Whatever the dismissal without prejudice, I don't really have a specific recommendation. I think they're voluntarily dismissing it, and it's sort of endemic that it's something they could apply for in the future. There's no action being taken on the item
Okay.
if it's dismissed, so.
Sounds great.
A simple motion to dismiss, or if you want to make it really clear, a motion to dismiss without prejudice, meaning that they could always come back later, that certainly would not hurt the record at all.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion
I'll make a motion to dismiss with prejudice, without prejudice, sorry.
I'll second.
Mr. Zeman.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Crocker.
Yes.
Mr. Haddon.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. We have a preliminary site plan of a restaurant, Starbucks, at 8323 Tyler Boulevard. I'll entertain a motion to remove this from the table.
So moved. Second.
Hold on.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. And the second was Mr. Crocker.
Mr. Zeman.
Yeah, gentlemen, if you speak down like this, it doesn't really carry to my seat. I apologize for that. It might be a little bit different when you're up there and you can have that sort of, you know which direction the sound is coming from. Again, my apologies. Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Crocker.
Yes.
Mr. Haddon.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. I see the applicant is here. Please state your name and address.
Sir, David Budge, I'm here with WXZ Development. Address is 22720 Fairview Center Drive, Fairview Park, Ohio.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit more about Starbucks.
Okay. We were here in August for the August meeting and presented a preliminary site plan. At that time, the building was flipped in the other direction, facing the main parking field here. And after discussion with the Planning Commission's recommendations were to flip the building to face Tyler and orient similar to the other buildings or the other buildings in the shopping center. And so what is here before you is that site plan showing the building flipped forward to face Tyler. We tried to get the building as far up or close to Tyler as we could to try and mimic the Taco Bell. The plan that you see here is it shows our proposed site next to the existing Taco Bell and what those setbacks are. A lot of what's gone into the thinking behind this site plan is really to deal with through traffic on the site and the stacking that a typical Starbucks gets. Prior to the pandemic, Starbucks drive-through traffic accounted for about 70% of their sales. So it is a majority of the sales that they do through their stores. And we've got some development restrictions, requirements with the shopping center owner to not allow traffic to back up into the main shopping center drive aisle. So this was an attempt to try and minimize that or eliminate it by creating a building that's more centered on the site. A typical stacking requirement for Starbucks is 12 cars. This one has 11. There was a mention in the staff report of potentially looking at pushing the drive-through window back on the building or asking Starbucks to rework their fixture plan. And Starbucks has worked for years to try and get a fixture plan that gives them the most efficiency operationally inside. And so their requirement is to have that drive-through window in the front third of the building, closer to the patio. So there's not a lot of flexibility on their part in terms of moving that window. So I'd be happy to answer questions. I think the further we move the building up towards Tyler, the more conflict we have with the drive-through and the existing, or the proposed parking. I think Starbucks would be open to having the building moved further back into the site. That would give them more stack, but then we would lose some of the alignment of the buildings.
It's a tight lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, typically they'd like, I think the depth of this lot is what's presenting some of the challenges. The other thing is that the access to the site is in the rear, so it's promoting that layout. The Taco Bell they have less of a stacking requirement than Starbucks does. They just see fewer cars in the stack. And so that's what's creating this particular.
Okay. Thank you. Kathy, anything from administration?
So I think the developer has done a nice job in responding to what the planning commission had asked for last month. As someone who frequents this facility myself, and I've been to many of them, I can truly attest to the stacking issue. It is a real issue. And I know the pandemic has added to it, but I think people are just now prone to just going through the drive-through. So for myself, while I understand the alignment issue with the buildings, I'm also very sensitive to the stacking because the more you push that forward, then the more the cars then conflict with the parking spaces, which is problematic. So, I mean, I would myself rather see less conflict with the parking spaces and get as much stacking in as you can. But I'm also sensitive to what the administration was recommending and what I think the planning commission wanted to see was some alignment with the Taco Bell. The Taco Bell's building is really close, which is not a bad thing from a planning standpoint, but again, we're dealing with two different issues here. So I don't think there's going to be any issue or concern with Starbucks being noticed, whether they're pushed back or not. People are going to know where it is. And so there is an entire site, as Larry's bringing up, between the two buildings. If it is, and not that we want it back where it was in terms of its position on the site, but I guess I would like to see as much stacking room as possible without impacting the parking spaces. And I know we talked about this, like with what was the other facility that we talked about with, I think it was Raising Cane's that we talked about. Well, they would, have their employees park in certain spaces so that they wouldn't have a conflict. And certainly Starbucks can do that, and that's on them to do that. But I'm just, we still get the calls as the city when things don't work out right on the site, so.
Thank you. So your average stack is 12 cars and you're showing 11. And you can't move the window northbound.
Correct.
Not a condition, but a recommendation. So we're at a point where worst case scenario, or at least for me, is having these cars in front of parking and people trying to get out or whatever. So I think I'd be willing, I guess, push the building back a little bit to get some more stacking. Again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think it's the westernmost outlot of this project, and you're not going to have any trouble being seen. So maybe 6, 8, 10 feet to get another.
Yeah, no more than 10 feet. We were just talking about that. I mean, it was a little tough with the site plan, Mr. Budge, in terms of, because it wasn't at a scale that was working with us, but working for us. As far as the 102-foot distance, is that to the curb? I mean, what is that? That's that dimension that's being shown there. Is that?
Yes, I believe that's to the edge of the curb,
You're certainly in compliance with the setback. That's not an issue. So even if they moved it back 10 feet, you could get one more car in there, which would comply then with their stacking requirements. But certainly, whatever you're comfortable with.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Cicero.
No, I support that. I think it was a bigger deal flipping the building to make the front of the building facing Tyler. Having it go back another 10 feet, I really don't have an issue with, especially as you say, it's the first plot as you're entering the whole center. I still would like to see the order window moved. I know the one on Heisley is in the front of the building, not in the back. You know, the building's similar, but I get because we flipped the building, but this drive-through goes a different direction than that one. And it's only a recommendation, if you were able to push back 10 feet and move the window, we'd get another 2, maybe 3 cars. And I think you'd be safe with that number. I'm not demanding it moved, I just think I'd look at it.
Yeah, I understand. I see that. I think, you know, as I said, I think Starbucks would be okay with moving it back. I mean, that's what they wanted originally. The other thing is, they have approved this plan. I think parking drive-through conflicts are just a matter of course for them. I think it's at every location, so they understand there's going to be some of that at peak hours, and I think they're okay with it. I'm speaking from the tenant's, perspective. But we can certainly move the building back and try and minimize that. That's not a problem.
Mr. Perkovic.
I was going to mention as well, I'm in favor of moving the building back. That gets you possibly one additional car, but with that move, is there a possibility of taking possibly 1 or 2 of those parking spots that are in that handicap row, moving those to the far west, and that might get you the other car? Again,
Down there, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there's some sort of a conflict at a certain point in the radius that possibly wouldn't work. But again, if we're moving the building back, maybe removing just one of those spots, that gets you another car.
Sure.
So it's just something to think
Yeah, I
about.
mean, I think we can look at that. I think we're at the parking requirement for city, and we have some cross-parking,
Giant Eagle.
ability with Giant Eagle.
And maybe look at putting, I'm sorry, are you,
Yeah, I'm finished. Thank you.
maybe putting a employee parking sign up for those first couple spots that, to help that, because I see the Starbucks all around town too. They stack.
Right.
People like the coffee. So there's always a line at a Starbucks.
Well, this will be the 4th one for Menor, which, I mean, it's a testament to how well they do.
Yeah.
There's always a line and there's less cars parked in the parking lot, so I'm not sure you're going to have that much of an issue.
Right. Okay, and then there was one other issue, was the dumpster. The administration recommends bringing the dumpster further into the site.
Yeah, that's fine. I see what they're saying. I mean, this was a conceptual plan. We can try and mimic the Taco Bell dumpster to get it out of a line of sight. That shouldn't be a problem, just moving it further back towards the building.
Okay. Anything else from the commission members? And this is preliminary, so we'll see you again.
Yep, sure. And I've read the conditions and we're in agreement.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve with the 9 conditions.
I'll second.
Mr. Zeman.
Mr. Cicero,
Yes.
Mr. Crocker,
Yes.
Mr. Haddon,
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic,
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann,
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. We have a final site plan of a car wash at 5800 Heisley Road. The applicant here, please state your name and address for Mr. Zeman. And we'll do the site plan portion now.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good evening. Jeff Serto, Davidson Smith Serto Architects, and the address is 26031 Center Ridge Road in Westlake. Tonight, we're back for final planning approval for the Blue Falls Car Wash on Isley Road. We are in receipt of the staff report from the plans that were submitted. In that report, there were some conditions, recommendations, and I would, from a civil engineering traffic standpoint, I think we're in agreement with all the conditions thereof. We will be providing all the required documents as part of the construction for the project. There were 3 items in the architectural review that we sent a letter yesterday, and
Yeah,
I
we'll
believe
get to
you're all
that.
copied on that.
Let's get through the site plan first,
Okay.
and then we'll come back to that.
So since the preliminary plan approval, at that time, if you recall, we had a traffic report that required us to widen the road. We've gone ahead and committed to doing that for this project, so our plan has now incorporated that widened road, so we've pushed the right-of-way back for that additional lane. In that, the building went back accordingly on the property. We did reduce the vacuum count by 1, so we're at 14 now. We're in compliance with all the required setbacks. Really the only change in that site plan from preliminary.
Okay, thank you. Kathy, anything from the administration?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman, other than the 9 conditions noted.
Okay. Anything from commission members? Mr. Zeman? Oh, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion on the final site plan with the 9 conditions.
Second.
Mr. Zeman?
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Crocker.
Yes.
Mr. Haddon.
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes. We have an architectural review of a car wash at 5800 Heisley Road. That applicant's here. Let's talk a little bit about the architecture.
Okay, so I'll start with the dumpster enclosure. There was a request to mimic the stone veneer that's on the base of the building. So originally, we had submitted a concrete block enclosure. And so we're modifying that. It's still a concrete masonry unit, but it's a smaller height, so it's a similar scale to the stone veneer that would go on the building, and we would change that color to be similar to that. As an idea, this is the stone veneer that'll be around the base of the wash, and that's the masonry that we would use on the enclosure. In regards to the 2 other items were the blue color of the vacuum stations and the trash receptacles provided there. I think Eric Kirk is going to speak to that.
Hello, my name is Eric Turk. I'm the CEO and president of the Conrad Companies. The address is 14577 Lorraine Avenue, Cleveland, Ohio, 44111. First, I just want to start off by saying we want to be in the city. We're excited about the development and really excited about this project. And in regards to the colors of the trash can and the the fabric canopy, if the decision is made we need to change the colors, we'll do what you feel is best with that. But what I wanted to say a little bit is just talk a little bit about our brand and what the blue means to us. I feel, we've been in business for 52 years. We have 38 tire and auto service centers, Conrad's, one on Heisley Road, right down the road with the blue roof, which is very similar to the color of the Steris building's roofs also on the street. We're very proud of our brand, like most companies. It took a long time to build it. We've been in the car wash business for close to 10 years, and we applied that same coloring scheme and brand package to our car washes. it's in the name. It's Blue Falls, is our name. Asking a little bit, maybe for some flexibility related to the color of the cans and to the fabric itself. We have muted the building down dramatically to really do a very much of an accent of blue compared to our other 6 tunnel car washes we have and the 3 or 4 that are in the works at the moment. We just trying to build a consistency and a flow from location to location with that product. So what I was asking is there any flexibility with the booms and the fabric and the cans themselves? I'm also a little concerned that I'm putting too many colors on the site itself, and it starts to get a little busy and a little jumbled, and I lose that brand recognition. In regards to what we did to the building to raise up all the stone, we really have went with the most state-of-the-art car wash that you can build, and in doing that, we're paying a pretty dollar to do that. We're investing close to over $5 million into this site, including now the road widening project, which we're willing to take on. Just was seeing if there was any flexibility in regards to the blue in these 2 situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy, anything from administration?
Certainly, I'll defer to the Planning Commission. The administration, stated their preferences. We spoke with the applicant a little bit earlier this week, understand what they're trying to achieve, at least in particular with number 1. I think we were just looking for consistency with the cover from what's on the other side of the building that's proposed, and as you can see there on the northwest elevation, with the canopy that's over the pay station area. It doesn't have to be, the metal isn't as much of a concern. If the fabric is what they prefer, we don't have any objections to that. I think we were just, again, looking for consistency in color. And so that one is black, that's what you see, so we would thought, okay, let's at least mimic that. So that would be the only thought we had. I think, and nothing against their brand or their colors, but when we saw all the booms and the trash receptacles with that color, it just seemed like a lot. So we were just looking to tone it down. Obviously, the feature of this site is the car wash building itself. It is a very nice looking building, no doubt. I don't think that the emphasis needs to be on the trash cans. And so they could be, I guess, in the administration's mind, a little bit more muted. So from our standpoint, the material of the cover, we were just looking for consistency on both sides of the building. We're fine with the fabric material. It doesn't have to be metal, so number 1 would be, we would recommend to modify that. And certainly we'll defer to, the commission's thoughts on the coloring.
Thank you. Anything from commission members? Mr. Chair. Mr. Cicero.
I absolutely get what you're saying with your brand and your colors. But I also think and I agree with Kathy, I think it's a beautiful building. But what you've developed here, it almost fits to have less blue, I guess, in my opinion, around the booms and the trash receptacles. I like the idea of fabric better than metal. I think that will kind of soften it a little. But I think when you look at the overall building, because you've muted the blue, I guess so much, it almost makes sense now to not throw all this blue in there. If you're able to match and make it look similar to the stone and similar to the other side, I think it adds to the look of your building. I think you have a beautiful building as you've laid it out here.
Can I comment, or should
absolutely.
I wait? Thank you for the kind words. I'm a little concerned that those booms or those blue posts line up right with the blue that we have left in between the glass, and they will block that blue. And I'm really losing, in a sense, that look from that side. I would also say, you know, while I realize the wash vacuums that were just approved, I believe it was at Cardinal or one of the others, had a black color. You know, I do see consistency if I look at the classic wash. You know, their boom vacuums are all red. You know, the whole deal there, and that's part of their brand. And so I guess that's all I got left to say.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, it's not a showstopper for me. I can actually go either way. I just thought if you add more blue, I thought it kind of takes away from what you've already developed.
Anything else from the commission members?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Perkovic?
I could go either way as myself on the booms, whether they're blue or black. Does it make sense, though, or can we get the applicant to weigh in on if we say blue on the booms, you know, to tie in with the mullions between the windows, but that fabric being black to match the other black is, you know, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I'd be open to that. I'm not sure exactly what it would look like. You know, I haven't seen that, you know, the mix and match of that, but I would be open to some compromise there for sure.
John?
Yeah, I think that would leave the poles at least to be able to be seen, and if the garbage, you know, there, that would add to the accent, and then maybe if that, is there, let me ask you a question, is there a black around?
I give the color.
No, it's a silver,
Around the towers, there is black.
Yeah, there's a slight black ring around some of the towers, so maybe if the fabric was black, it would match to that piece also.
See, and under that model, I think I'd keep the garbage blue, because you wouldn't want that stark black
Back and
blue at the
forth.
bottom. I'd go blue on the poles and blue on the garbage.
Ms. Mitchell?
Well, just to clarify a couple things. Number 2 really only talks about the trash cans. So if you're going to indicate the booms as well, we need to add that language. The blue balls serve as trash cans, so I think that's what we were focused on, that was what we were hoping to tone down. And also, I think the only distinction I just wanted to point out, and I know the applicant pointed out a couple of the other locations, this is in the MIP district. It does have a different set of standards. It does have a different purpose statement. Really focuses on aesthetic quality and so forth. So I think we sometimes, you know, and that's not something that's very obvious to a lot of folks, you know, whether it's, you know, the M1 versus the MIP, but it does have a different set of standards. So, which is why I think we hold some of that architectural quality to, you know, a higher level. That's all I'll say.
Thanks. Now, I'm also in agreement with Mr. Cicero, Mr. Perkovic. I think the building's great. And
Thank you.
And you're doing the road winding project. I mean, there's a lot of capital that you're putting into this building here, and I applaud you for that. But I think I'm on board with everybody. It's just a lot of blue. So if we could come up with some way, and if you're in agreement with,
Yeah, I like
tone it down
John's
a bit.
idea.
Because I agree. I think the building stands by itself. But it's not make it or break it for me either. You know, so I'd be willing to.
Yeah, I'd support it with Mr. Perkovic's suggestion of the black fabric and keep the booms blue with the garbage blue.
Would you be okay with
That
that?
would be very acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else from the commission members? All right, so we're gonna have to change these conditions a bit. Ms. Mitchell? Let's rewrite these conditions.
Shall be constructed of.
So I think with number 1, I would recommend that the language could stay the same up until the proposed canopy over the vacuum station area shall be constructed of black fabric material. And you could say consistent with the pay booth. Or we could just get rid of that altogether. I think we could,
Yeah, I
I think
if
we
you just say black, you're good.
but we had said metal, so we want to make sure we
Right,
get rid of the
black
word metal.
fabric.
So black fabric, and included with the building permit submission. So just get rid of same metal panel material as the canopy above the pay booth. Just get rid of that altogether. So again, the proposed canopy over the vacuum station area shall be constructed of black fabric and included with the building permit submission. Does that sound good?
It sounds good.
As for number 2, maybe Mr. Perkovich wants to try that one?
Well, I
Well,
think that,
we're not changing them. So this condition talks about changing the color of what was submitted. So if on the submission, if the garbage and the booms are already blue, do we just strike this condition?
You certainly can do that.
Wouldn't that be the simplest way?
Yes.
Okay.
And then 3 can stay as is.
Three
these days is,
It becomes 2.
Yeah,
It becomes
so it's 2 conditions.
There we go.
Okay, I'll make a motion with the modified first condition and the second condition regarding the dumpster.
Second.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes. Mr. Zamekolo.
Mr. Cicero?
Yes.
Mr. Crocker?
Yes.
Mr. Haddon?
Yes.
Mr. Perkovic?
yes,
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for your time and feedback. Really appreciate it. Kathy, thank you for all your help.
Kathy's great. Anything from administration?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.